So with this, I would like to have my colleagues here, up on the other speakers here, and we will introduce you to the third and last session, the last part of this session today, the panel discussion. We have prepared some questions, and I would like to start with that and just hear what you think when it comes to starting your different journeys. Is it one thing you would like to say that, what would you have done differently?
Many things. Now, I think that, well, I think the most influential aspect is leadership, and learning how to pull people together. So yeah, I think the criteria for leadership are often not well understood. I mean, I talk to students all the time, and in terms of professional education, understanding of leadership is a poor thing. So I think I would improve and work very much on professional understanding of what leadership really is. It's not being given, it's taking and leading with humility but determination, which is often quoted. But so I think that's really, I think, the thing that I've learned the most.
Yeah. That's interesting. And Thea, you want to share something?
Yeah, I mean, I said already, for me, definitely the team building, and I think that goes along leadership as well, was something that I was not prepared for 100%. And in general, this entrepreneurship, at least, yeah, I mean, it's not that long ago, but sometime, we had no preparation in academia for that. I know that this is changing now, because I think everyone sees that actually scientists do want to actually innovate and start their own companies. So I think that would have helped a lot as well.
Yeah, interesting. People, and team. Yeah. What do you think, Jack?
I think I wish I scaled out. I think listening to your presentation, Lotte, I think this International Science Park thing, I wish I knew about that.
I'm not paid by
no, but it's thinking across boundaries, across borders. I think there's a tendency when you're building is to think vertically up, not sort of the x-axis doesn't generally come into it. But actually, with the type of world we're in now, especially I think coming from a UK-centric point of view, we're good at innovation from a startup point of view. We're not great at the tier for scale-up. And I think maybe the thing for us to think about is, especially for a country like the United Kingdom, is you go laterally, right? Go out and explore and try to get your tentacles across borders.
That's interesting. Did you ever work with a science park or innovation university-based holding?
We tried. So when we spun the business out from the university, we went to Wales, right? Thinking of my business partner at the time, he's proud Welshman, and he thought, we're going to have the red carpet rolled out and they'll ferry him in and carry him on their shoulders. But our experience wasn't that. When we went, we spun out sort of straight after the crash, so after the 2008 crash, a couple of years, give or take a little bit, we started to spin out. And the Welsh Assembly government at the time had started an initiative with Imperial College. So there's not enough lab space in London, get everybody out from the east into the west, which is never going to happen, right? But so they built a beautiful infrastructure to do that. So incubator labs, and they poured, as lots of government initiatives, a lot of soft cash came in. But really there was not enough, those businesses didn't have enough to keep them going. So when we arrived, everyone had either left or had gone bust, and there was too many vested interests at that time. So people wanted to kind of move in. We eventually had to go and buy our own facility to kind of keep growing. So initiatives like the one you've mentioned, I think, are really helpful for startups when you want to get growth going.
Interesting. I see that the chairs are looking at me. I believe we have maybe some questions from the audience.
Audience, please
We
go
want to
ahead as
engage
well,
you, so
because
please. We are
This
ready.
is an interactive session, so the panel discussion and the questions. So
I believe it's Slido too. No, it will come later.
Slido is open as well, but
Yeah.
I already see people coming up.
Yeah,
so-
because I believe we have people sitting at home or in other countries as well. So please use Slido and the chairs will sort the questions to me. Yes?
Hi,
please.
I'm Chris Hall from Sharpos Partners. I noticed that a few people mentioned money and where the money's going. And David mentioned 2010 has innovation stopped. And do you think that you're just looking at it through the perspective of inhalation formulation? And that actually, if you look at it through the perspective of asthma, then in about 2010, a lot of the money went to developing injectables. So actually, it's just the perspective you're looking at the market from, not actually whether there's money and innovation happening. And that is it that innovation is following the money, and we're just not changing our perspective with the money?
Interesting. Yeah, sure, David.
I mean, Chris, I guess that's absolutely right. And I know there was a bit of controversy a few years ago on this, but I come back to affordability. You know, I mean, I think the progress made in that area has been phenomenal, but it doesn't address affordability. And I think, so where does the money go? You know, that's, I think, arguably an example of it going into a particular polarized area. Perhaps not the area that follows the Asthma for All 2025 initiative. Sorry.
We have another question here. Yeah.
Hello, I think this session is fantastic, by the way. I think you've done a really good job in putting this together.
Thank you.
I've got a question around diversity, and I mean this by diversity of thought and diversity of discipline and interfaces. Because a lot of the examples you've given are innovation arises when different disciplines clash at an interface. And I just would like to know the panel's perspective on how we increase that. Because you sit within a room with your peers, and the worst thing you can do is have groupthink. And if you recruit in your own image, then the answer you get is the question that you pose. You don't want, my view is you don't, and I'll shut up, I want your views, not mine. But you don't get the answer to the question you want. You should get the answer to the question you need. And I'd just like your views on how we as a community do stretch out beyond that and look at alternative technologies, which is where you started, David, with that. So,
yeah, if I just start with that, that is something that actually we work with at science parks and similar organizations, because I also believe, you know, there are different logics, and I often see myself and my peers to be like translators of the research logic, wanting to know more, digging down, and so on, and publish what I find. And business logic, it's good enough, let's make money, you know? So it's different ways of thinking. And it could be very hard to do that and to expose myself into and say that, well, hey, can we talk together? Then it's good to use a translator, I think. So you could do that by reaching out to the EISP community, for instance, I believe. Or do you have any practical examples? Brave. I think you mentioned, you said you got a prize there for the collaboration in 2012. Did you do something different?
Well, yes, I think, I mean, I hesitate to say too much because I could go on all day about this, but Eddie is absolutely right. I think what we did is get different people in the room. And you also have to realize that I mean, Eddie's right, you know, they all have different agendas, not because they're different sort of people, but because the background, the way that society, and particularly things like funding, culture has evolved, is not necessarily due to the people, it's due to the environment. You know, I think an opportunity for DDL is to try to make that message more accessible through us. I mean, there's a lot of different people here, a lot of new people from my perspective. So it is about breaking down that barrier, and that's hard to do because you're having to, you know, and I see this in academia. I struggled because it was breaking down silos to get people to talk to each other. And in a world where specialization is king, that's hard.
Thea, did you see anything when you were
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think it's really where most of the interesting ideas and innovation comes from. I think for us, I mean, I try to do it on a small level by just hiring very openly. I love always to get applications which are from a different field, but show me that they're actually really interested in the topic and really want to contribute. I think this is far more important for me than knowing that this person can do something in the lab, because I think if you have a PhD, you usually can do that. So that's the small level. How you can do this at a bigger level, I think we need more people that actually see it the same way, because then you actually have this openness and actually also be like, it's not all mine, I don't want to share it, I'm the specialist.
And when you say same way, you mean that we want to
exactly include include different disciplines and actually see how other people would approach
and allow
problems.
that.
Oh, 100%. Like it can be via seminars, via collaboration. So I think I really try to do that, because again, if you come to a room where you don't feel the smartest, that's the best. Like usually, that's actually.
So Jack, have you ever entered a room not feeling the smartest?
All the time, all the time. I think just to Eddie's point, though, I think if you look at this diversification aspect, then I think it's absolutely, you know, you want as many brains on a given problem anyway. But if you start with the value proposition, the barriers disappear. Because if your commonality is, we just got to get the job done, right? It doesn't matter if it's a physicist, a biologist, geologist. I mean, you know, you could have anybody in there, so long as that they're driving through to getting that value proposition of over the line. And I think that made it easier. Like at least the two companies, Nanopharm and Rigamune, we had to get. It didn't matter. The driver there was, we needed to grow the business. We needed good people to come straight in. And what we wanted to do was to really just get the basic scientist in and let them flourish, right? So it wasn't that someone needs to be a pharmacist or someone needs to be from a med chem background. You know, some of the best people I employed are biologists, right? It doesn't matter. At Rigamune, we are such an interface. You know, this RNA thing is not easy. It does make you start thinking about, you know, you need the physicist, you need the biologist, you need the chemist, you need the device engineer, you need someone who's going to look at, you know, how plastics interact with and things in your device interact with things. So by nature, we are multidisciplinary, but where the friction occurs is when there's a misalignment in the value proposition. What's the goal here? If you line on the goal, it's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. We have another question here from the audience.
Susan Kelly, Ulster University, innovator and spinning company. I guess my question really is about pull factors and the drive of the system. So through a narrower lens, talking perhaps about the NHS, 1.8% of funding, the total funding budget in the UK goes to respiratory. I think that kind of drives a lot of us to thinking of, you know, are we in the right place innovating? But I wondered if the panel wanted to comment on how health services like the NHS need to be engaged better to drive the innovations and collaborate more. It's a difficult environment to engage with too often, I think, and really impedes innovation. So just the panel's thoughts on that.
Yes, I believe we have many thoughts.
I want to kick off really. I think what I find, you know, is the NHS funding innovation, or is NHS funding really trying to find cost control wherever it can? What astounds me is all this move on low global warming potential stuff. You know, we've gone straight from being in one type of dosage form in PMDIs in the NHS straight into dry powder inhalers without really thinking it through. and just putting a financial incentive on it. I'm sorry, I just find it absolutely abhorrent that it came down to money. I mean, just give you my mother's an asthmatic. She was on Foster. She was quite happy with a Foster PMDI. You know, good old Lewis put it together. You know, and she's in Easyhaler, the Orion dry powder inhaler. Now, nothing wrong with the Orion device, but the NHS is not driving innovation. It's just driving innovation. Innovation is a disguise to control cost. But I wonder, is it at the expense of patients?
Thank you. I think we will want more to interact, so we have more questions, and that's lovely. Please think of a good question, a question you have. So, yeah. Go first here. Yeah? First here, I think. Yeah?
Thank you so much for this wonderful session, for so many points, insights. Okay. My name is Eva Littringer. I come from Austria, this wonderful ecosystem, obviously. I work part-time in a big corporate, but also founded 2 startups. So I try to understand really the world of innovation in pharma. And I think what we often forget in pharma, we come from a very traditional way of thinking. Innovation is always linked to lots of costs, investments, and we have multiple stakeholders. So we have medical doctors, we have nurses, and the majority of people usually doesn't want to change. So I think this crowd here might be an exception because we're curious, we are scientists, we want to change, but we often forget in innovation. Changing the status quo is hard. And when I read the history, you said there was in the 60s or 80s, the change to DPIs and all was actually an extremely external pressure. The Montreal Protocol, that CFCs were banned, and so there was an external pressure that led to innovation. And I think the same is always for disruptive innovation in pharma. We don't argue it's new molecules, but that's probably not for this crowd. So having a disruption in production process, there must be an extremely high pressure that anyone would change this. And this leads me a little bit to the second way, why we are so conservative and risk averse. And I think that's mainly related that in pharma, innovation decisions tend to be taken at a very senior level, especially in big corporates. And my feeling is the more senior you get, the more you have seen what fails or doesn't work, and the risk averse you get with decision taking, maybe to go for something non-traditional. And that's why I also want to use this round here for some advertisement. We plan to do some studies with a university, with a professor for innovationship, where we want to especially understand this decision on risk aversity that comes with seniority and the impact on innovation in the pharma healthcare system. So anyone who is interested joining this research study, please reach out, because we really want to understand it holistically.
Where to find you, for those who are interested? Where to find you?
Just
outside afterwards?
Yeah? Afterwards, please. So
great.
Please share me your details if you want to join this study, because I think the more we get also from different geographies and different areas, the easier it will.
Thank you. Thank you. When we talk about this risk adverse, that's what we're talking about. Just you started your speech about how we see the shift from big pharma. Maybe that is one thing, yeah, to smaller startups, yeah.
Well, I mean, another thing, the second slide about the Nobel Prize was, this theme recurs over and over and over again. Is one of the resistances to innovation, and I think the question about clinicians from the back. It's so important to engage the clinicians, but I've always found it's really hard to find somebody who has the time because they're so busy, and the mechanism to do that is so hard. I mean, that would be my response to that question. Really important question is, at the end of the day, it's the clinician and the patient are the only thing that really matters. And if you don't talk to them, you'll end up by inventing the proverbial chocolate teapot. It's
Oh, well, a lot of things happens after this. Yeah, we have
just wanted to ask the panel a question. I think we floated around it a little bit, but I call it push versus pull. So with innovation, really talking about the voice of the customer. I think we're quite lucky in pharma.
Yeah.
There's a customer, I think David mentioned in his presentation, we go from the bench to the bedside.
Mm.
So obviously the patient, the regulators, the pharma company, the CRDMOs, and the material suppliers, they all have a very clear, for me, voice of customer statement as they go up that stream.
Mm.
But what do the panel think? What's the sweet spot? What's the ratio? Do you think that innovation is being pushed or pulled at the moment? When I look at the posters, I have a view. I look at every single poster. Who's the customer? Where is this poster aimed? Where is it going? Some of them it's obvious. Some of them it's not. So what do you think about push and pull?
You have something?
I think there's definitely a pull.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a pull if you look at it from the back end of the market, where you look at deals that have gone on with Verona and Sedara, you're talking, good 10 billion going down for these types of companies. And I think the problem is, so there's definitely a pull. There's a desire for respiratory products for certain. But I think the issue from inception to getting to that point is a big gap. And to your point, the ecosystem that you described, CRDMOs, materials, everything else, it's how does that become more effective or efficient to enable those companies feeding into it to get through that cycle, to get closer there. And I think this is where the problem, it appears to be a push, but actually there's a massive pull, but the string is so long, you just can't see it come into getting taut, right? It just, there's too much room. And that's where I think, particularly with certain innovations around AI, etc., that's why you're seeing, Glaxo doing nearly a 12 billion deal with Hengrui, right? You've got someone who's just given you a pipeline.
Great. Another question, yeah?
Yes, Jürgen Bulita, what a fantastic session. My question is for David. It goes all around the concept of sharing ideas, concepts, and actually also people and technologies. So what have you in your career kind of found out is the most successful strategy of when to share, how much to share, to really foster the breadth of implementation of an innovation or idea or technology?
Jürgen, it's great to see you. I didn't realize you were here. I'm going to give a very bad answer to this question because I've made mistakes all my career. I share very quickly. But I believe it's the right way. I think I have seen so many opportunities, potential lost because, and again, I'm going to be outspoken here. I see far too much secrecy in academic labs. They're all paranoid of the lab next door stealing stuff. And if you do that, no progress. So I'm the wrong person because I'll give you a very straight answer. I will share. But I think I make this quote all the time. Ideas are cheap. The only thing that matters is the realization. Everybody has the same ideas. And I think, you see this tension, particularly in research, that, it was my idea. No, it wasn't. It was my idea. That is completely irrelevant. The idea comes from the problem, and the problem needs to be solved. And, to this community point, the sharing. At the end of the day, it's the person who delivers is the only one that matters. Really. Sorry.
Yeah, another one.
Which comes to my point, which is, David, you talked about 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Yeah. And yet if you look at where the reward goes to the innovator and not to the perspirer. And it's the quality of perspiration that gets you to a product. And yet the structure of the industry is the risk taker, the inventor, and the funder who make the money out of it, not the guy who actually perspires and makes it happen. And that maybe is why there's less success in getting stuff from inspiration to delivery.
Do you all agree about that? Yeah? Good. Well, sometimes the founders do not agree with that, I can say. I help owner-led companies, and when investors are coming in, taking shares of the company, and a lot of shares, especially if it's risky times, especially these times, and the valuation of the companies decrease. So they get a big chunk of the company, and then there are tough times.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you having to deal with venture capital, it's fraught, because you're already on you're on a timer in order to get to your inflection points, and there's a very rare few who get to that inflection point with enough equity to make them take enough off the table. So actually, it is the investors who are they're controlling it. And I think the way I see the respiratory community developing is that you're going to see a divide, I think, of two populations really owning it. I think on one hand, you're going to have the biotechs, which are going to be run by the VCs. And, they're seeing the deals that are going down, right? They are not small sums of money. So on the other side of it, on the CRDMO side of it, because they are making the money, because even if it fails, they're still going to get paid for the time and effort that they're putting into doing that absolutely correctly, right? But you can see private equities grabbing that side of it. So essentially, you're going to have the whole community sequestered on two sides. So where's the control going? Is it even us as individuals, I don't think, are going to control anything.
What we see also is a lot of investors want to protect the founders because they are key to the company, obviously. Yes. And so a lot of different kind of stock option programs. It's really complicated.
Yeah, but let's be cynical, right? Yeah. The minute it gets past that inflection point, the founder can go. They're in the background, right? Which founder? And I saw it happen at Vectura, right? How many times does anybody think about Staniforth from Vectura? Right? Guy founded it. Actually, if you look at the value of Vectura when it was first seeded, all came from CDD, right? That was John, right? It wasn't CDFS was a CDMO, right? Now, if you look, you only have to look at that history of Vectura. How did it start? They couldn't put a value on CDFS. It was a CRO, right?
I think John was absolutely the inspiration to some extent, but I wouldn't take away from David Ganderton, Brian Meakin, Chris Marriott. It was a team. They were all different, all very different people, and I think that actually is you're absolutely right. John was amazing, and it was that collective that made Vectura those early days, definitely.
But I think the point I'm trying to make is, where's the IP, right? So if you look at if the VC is coming along and they want to put money into you, they're going to look at, well, they're going to value you. Where's your IP? And what Staniforth, to his credit, and I kind of got to know the story more intimately after he passed. But he had his hands burnt the first time around. So he went in with the university the very first time around, and they didn't. He, as a founder, wasn't going to get anything, right? He was going to get less than 10%. University was going to get everything. And he says, right, that's it. I'm drawing a line in the sand. Everything from this moment onwards is mine, right? And it's IP wins it, right?
Yeah, I believe that how to fund a startup is a whole new session, actually. It's a tricky business there. We have some. Yeah, I think we
have to slowly close the session, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of questions. But before we're gonna let everybody have their coffee, we just have one more. It's the same slide though, so maybe you had it still open on your phone, and otherwise please open it again and just answer a really simple question. It's a yes/no question. While you do that, I will thank Lotte, David, Tia, and Jack for their contribution. I just want to have a great round of applause for them.